Welcome back to the Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. My name is Rami Lavi. That is Vince Damato. We have some news and headlines for you. But first, how you doing, Dr. Vinny?
Doing great. Had a good week so far. Baseball's been fun to watch, as always. Living the dream here in
I missed the
Illinois.
Subway Series game last night. I'm not going to lie. I was at a concert.
I saw Justin. Was it Justin Timberlake, right? Because of your caption, right? Yeah.
Fresh off of his DUI, got to see him live. Whole bunch of celebrities there. I didn't mind. It was not a bad. By the way, it was actually interesting. So they did sell it out. I walked up at 8 o'clock. It was called for 8 or 7:30. And at about 8:15, I just walked up to the ticket office at MSG and bought tickets. So, I mean, afterwards, they announced that it was sold out. And there were only a few tickets left when we got there. But it was great. No fees, no taxes. And you just walk up, and they had 2 price points. I said, they're like, hey, you want this price point or that price point? I guess after the event officially is already started, they just sell whatever they can. And it was great. I walked right in. And, I mean, we were in our seats before, a good 25 minutes before he got out there anyway. We were in the city. So it was like, why the hell? I was wearing my Yankee t-shirt because I thought we were going to go to the City Field to the Bay. I was like, would I rather pay $90 to go see a baseball game in June? At the end of the day, I love the Subway Series. I'm a big Subway Series guy. But am I going to pay $90 to go see the Subway Series in June, or $100 to see a concert that this guy comes here, once every few years? I don't know.
Even buying tickets. I mean, I haven't done it recently, but if you just look at last minute tickets, you just head down without tickets to Wrigley Field or wherever you want to go, and last minute try to buy tickets. They're probably going to be cheap because people are just trying to, throw away whatever they haven't sold. Got to start doing that a little more.
That's what I always do. But for some reason, the market wasn't really moving on the secondary market. And I saw people walking up to the box office. I was like, all right, I'm in the building already. I might as well walk up to the box office because I'm already inside Madison Square Garden. You could get into the building because there's the shop and everything. You don't have to scan a ticket to get in. You just have to go through security. And then to get into the actual arena, you have to scan your ticket. So I'm standing in Madison Square Garden at about 8:15, and then I'm like, all right, the concert was called for 8. Let me go up to the box office, and that's what happened. So
yeah, good for you. That's awesome.
It worked out. Missed the game. Didn't miss much. Garrett Cole not been great in his first 2 starts back, and obviously last night 4 home runs, no strikeouts, so not great. Other headlines, by the way, around the league: Fernando Tatis Jr. landed on the IL with I don't even know what that is, a stress reaction in his right femoral. I don't know what I don't know.
No idea. Wish I could help you.
Yeah, so 10-day IL. I don't know what the timeline is for him, but that's just something to pay attention to. And more pitcher injuries. You mentioned Brian Wu has gone to the IL as well. What was that with?
That is with, I have switched screens here. Hamstring strain.
Okay.
So, and it sucks. I don't know if you looked at him or followed him at all, but he certainly having a breakout year. He had the lowest xERA among all MLB starters at 2.15. So he's absolutely killing it this year. Too bad.
And that's a shame. And Patrick Sandoval from the Angels also just the latest pitcher to have Tommy John surgery. Also, in one more injury news, you mentioned the hamstring. TJ Friedl, I told you held out on him. He came back for 2 games from the hamstring, and then 2 games later, he goes on the IL with the same hamstring. So I guess that's why they don't rush people back from hamstrings, right? So who knows how long? We literally said, I said on the episode last week, I was like, well, he's got the hamstring, but he's not on the IL with it. So, hamstrings, you never know with that. But if they're not putting him on the IL, then he's probably fine. He plays 2 games, comes back, plays well, and then boom, lands right back on the IL. So another one, which is just stupid, is Giancarlo Stanton. We knew
it was coming. Yeah, we knew it was coming. Yeah. You know what other one we knew was coming? Your favorite, Starling Marte. So I have a question for you here. So I have all of my IR spots are reserved. I have Mookie Betts, Realmuto, Michael Harris, Gavin Williams, Jordan Romano, all on IR. Do I drop Starling Marte if I have no other room in a 12-team league? Or because he's out for at least 4 weeks, it says, right? Am I going to hold on to him that long? Because I'm not taking out Mookie. I'm not taking out Realmuto. I'm not taking out Michael Harris. That
in a 12-team league,
valuable. Yeah,
in a 12-team league, I think you drop him. I mean, I'm wondering the same thing right now with TJ Friedl. Here's who I have on my IL. Let me look at it real quick so I have it factual.
Yeah,
I have actually 2 questions for you. But first, I could drop Evan Carter. He hasn't done anything, and who knows when he's going to come back this year. and Xander Bogaerts at the same time. Xander, there is an update on him. He took batting practice today. So, like, he might be coming back soon. Although I've gotten great production at shortstop from Josh Smith, but I can move Josh Smith around. And we'll talk about Josh Smith a little bit later. And then my other IL spot is Kyle Harrison, who's also someone who's like, I could drop. So all my IL spots right now are taken by guys that I could theoretically drop. And then there's Friedel, who I'm the one who told you to hold on to him, but it seems like he can't stay healthy.
It's too bad, too, because you're absolutely like, I mean, his average isn't what we expect. It's 208, but he still brings power speed in less than 100 at-bats, 4 and 6 of home runs, stolen bases. It is too bad because I feel like there was a lot there, a lot of fantasy juice. The Reds, I don't know, is it the Reds? Do they have a bad, a personal training group or what? Because they've had some of the worst injury luck I've seen this year. It's been pretty brutal for them.
Yeah, and the last thing, I don't know what to do with Gleyber Torres. You tell me, what am I supposed to do? Do I just cut him at this point?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know.
I don't think he's getting better. As a Yankee fan, it's worse because I'm infuriated from him on two levels, from a fantasy level, and then also just watching him play every day, I'm infuriated. So, like, I think that makes me feel worse about him than even his numbers are, just being a Yankee fan. But I'm in a league with a bunch of New Yorkers. Nobody wants to trade for him. You know what I mean? And I don't know what's going to happen with him. I don't think he gets moved in the end. I think the Yankees just ride it out, which is idiotic. I wish he'd get traded, but who knows? Unless it's all a smokescreen and they're talking him up because they want to trade him. I don't think they're going to trade him. And what the hell do? I want to get rid of this guy.
I think if you're in 12 teams, you certainly can drop and look elsewhere. If you're deeper, you're probably holding on. It sucks because I think I may have mentioned this. I traded in the offseason I traded for Gleyber Torres. I gave away Spencer Steer. And boy, do I wish I could have that one back. That one hurt quite a bit. But I thought Gleyber was going to be a staple. And I think the Yankees, have been hoping for the same thing. It felt like he was a consistent year-over-year production guy. He's going to give you 20 plus home runs, 250, 60 batting average, somewhere around there. Like, you can live with that. But 215 batting average, you can't do that. So
he's done nothing. He's done nothing. And they've given him every opportunity. He plays every day. He was hitting cleanup the other day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know the lineup's struggling lately, but a good Yankee lineup. And every aspect of his game just sucks. And he's just awful right now. So I don't know how much longer we wait for him to turn it around. In some positive news, first of all, have you seen what the Guardians have been up to? They've won 7 in a row. They're now 25 games over 500. They're being led by my guy, Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, I mean, I have Jose in a dynasty league, and it's unbelievable. He's carrying my team in some weeks. Like, I would be losing if it wasn't for him, obviously. And it's huge. It's awesome. 21 home runs for him, 15 stolen bases. I mean, those are just stupid I mean, we're talking a potential 40-40 season here, probably closer to 40-30, but I mean, it's just unbelievable from, the 31-year-old third baseman. Like, you just don't see that. This guy is just unbelievable.
Yeah, and then Max Scherzer, I didn't see a ton of hype around his return, but then he came back and he shoved. I know it was only 5 innings, but 5 innings, 1 hit, 4 strikeouts. So no runs and no walks. Yeah. So great job. I don't know if you could expect that the rest of the way, but if you're a Max Scherzer owner, I'd plug him in and see what you can get out of him the next few weeks.
100%. I mean, you don't need him to be the Max Scherzer of old with where you probably drafted him. Looks like his ADP was around 260.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need him to be an ace. You need him to be a good SP3, a guy who's going to eat innings, give you some strikeouts, and it looks like he's headed for that. So, welcome return for Max Scherzer.
All right, time for some who's hot and who's not. Are you ready with your first who's hot?
I am very ready for this guy. I have been waiting on this guy, Rami, for a long, long time. Not to say I was always in on him. I kind of hovered on the fence for this Cincinnati Reds player, and that is Jonathan India. I don't know if you've been following what Jonathan India has been doing,
have not.
But it's been great. Right now, currently, I think they're still in the middle of their game. He's on an 8-game hitting streak right now, and in the last 5 games, every single one of those 5 games has been a multi-hit game. He's got 6 doubles and 7 runs in the last 4 games alone. And his season numbers still don't look that great. I mean, he's 5 home runs, 8 stolen bases, but you'll live with the slash line of 270, 378, and, slugging is 391. So overall, it doesn't look that great from the power production standpoint. But again, just over the last 8 games, he's brought his average up 35 points. His slugging up 65 points from 326. there's potential here. I mean, again, I'm not expecting India to, blow the doors off the place and be the Jonathan India that won the Rookie of the Year, but this guy could certainly be a serviceable fantasy second baseman. I mean, if you're asking me if I'd rather have India or Gleyber Torres moving forward,
obviously
it's India by a mile. He's hitting leadoff for the Reds, which again he should continue to see regular at bats there as long as he's hot. Which great run production. I think the Reds, again, we've talked about the bad luck from them. They're due, I think, for some better days. We've been talking about it for a while, but I really do think that's the case. And Jonathan India looks like he's going to be leading that charge. So he's been absolutely scorching hot.
Yeah, that's a good one right there. He's obviously he's rostered right now and still in Yahoo, only 63% of Yahoo leagues. So rostered in my league, but if you can get him in a league that's, I mean, yeah, I would pick him up right now and plug and play at second base. I have a couple for you. So I have a starting pitcher, and I always love the self-fulfilling, prophecies. And so you probably know where I'm going with this. Kyle Hendricks has been fantastic. Over the last 2 weeks in 17 innings, he's got 13 strikeouts. He does have a win, a 1.59 ERA, and a 0.65 whip. So I think only 2 of those were starts. But in those 2 starts, 12 and 2/3 innings with 12 strikeouts and a win, and also 0.71 whip. The guy has been ridiculous. And I think they're going to keep him in the starting rotation as long as he's pitching like this. And he could be a really serviceable guy on your fantasy team.
You can play with that fire all you want. Maybe it's because I'm a Cubs fan.
I'm going to ride him while he's hot.
I'm not messing with Kyle Hendricks. I'm not going to do it. And that's fine. He paid off for you the last 2 times, and he could again. I think it's again because I've seen the downfall. If you could, he's a sell high for me at that point. I mean, he's been hot, absolutely, but he would absolutely be a sell high for me if he could. But
do you have any other hots, or was that your only hot?
That was my only hot. I got one.
Okay, so I got one more for you. Real quick. I did mention him earlier, so I just want to mention him again. Josh Smith, who's available at third base, shortstop, and outfield, has been awesome. Over the last 2 weeks, a 514 on base. He's 12 for 30 with 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, and 5 runs scored. Over the last month, he also has a couple stolen bases. And on the season, I mean, he's having a great season, close to 400 on base percentage with 7 home runs, 32 RBIs, 37 runs scored, and 4 stolen bases and 233 at bats. So Josh Smith, who's been playing all over the place for Texas, he's been really, really good. And he's been my shortstop since I lost Xander. And I can't take him out right now. He's rostered in only 67% of fantasy leagues, but his season ranking, how about this? He's ranked as the 107th best fantasy player. And I picked him up off waivers like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. So he's been one of the best players in the league.
And talk about the multi-positional eligibility. You just can't beat that.
Of course.
I mean, unbelievable. And some of the guys that we haven't touched on that I just thought would be fun to mention. Stephen Kwan has been absolutely phenomenal. We've been following him. And again, Royce Lewis. We try not to talk about the same guys all the time, but talk about one of the most electric players in the game. Those are definitely two of the guys at the front of the line there.
Well, how about JD Martinez? I mean, JD Martinez has been fun too. His on base is about 400 as well. So, and he just, I feel like he is responsible for the major change in the Mets lineup. I heard this about JD Martinez. I don't know if you heard this. When they had their players meeting, which was like shortly after he was brought up this season, he said, we're going to have a pregame meeting as the offense. The starting lineup is going to have a pregame meeting every day and talk about our approach versus today's starting pitcher. And then after the game, we're going to debrief what we did against him and if you deviated from the approach, we're going to have as a team, we're going to have an approach. If you deviate from the approach, that's fine, but just explain why you deviated from the game plan after the game. And what that does is that's just accountability for the entire team offensively, and it's proven. I don't know if that's the only thing, but the Mets offense has been ridiculously good, and that's the JD Martinez effect. So you love to see it. Guys who have not been doing great, so the not hot, I have a couple, so I'll start here with Will Smith, who is 3 for his last 38. Only 3 hits in his last 38 at-bats. One of them happens to be a home run, but a 182 on-base percentage in the last 2 weeks. So the catcher we keep talking about this, catcher has been slimming by the day, and one of the best in the league, the catcher for the Dodgers, has not been giving you the production you'd hope to get from him.
Yeah, that one's been kind of surprising. You know, we thought Will Smith was going to be a lock, top 3 catcher for sure, and just haven't seen it. You know, maybe it's just the ebb and flow of a season, or the bad luck date. I haven't looked into Will Smith, but yeah, it's been unfortunate to watch. My who's not hot is a guy that we talked about, and we implored you to sell. We told you maybe a few weeks ago to sell this guy, and that is Nolan Gorman, second baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I don't know if you followed his numbers, but since June 5th, his batting, these are all numbers since June 5th. So I want to say, I don't remember the exact episode date when we told you to sell on him. It was right after that huge hot home run barrage that he had. We said this is not going to last. And since June 5th, his batting average has gone down from 235 to 195. He only has 6 hits since then. I hope that you sold high when you could, because the Cardinals look like they're poised to make a playoff run. And if Nolan Gorman is not hitting the baseball at all, he's going to play himself right out of a playing time. And so, I think it's probably a little too late to sell high at all, but Nolan Gorman has been ice cold for the St. Louis Cardinals over the last month or so. And I can't imagine they're going to continue to roll him out there. But we'll see. So he's my who's not.
I was trying to find where we talked about it, but all right, I can't find it off like that quick. I'm trying to look through the episode descriptions, but because I do remember putting his name in the description. I think the episode we talked about it, but all right. I have another who's not hot, and you're not gonna like this one either. Shota Imanaga has been awful. Just 7.46 ERA over the last month. And I know a lot of that's inflated from his last start, but really he's just been bad for a while now. And did you see the tweet that went out? I saw it was going around. I'm not going to find it now, but here it is. I did find it. Wow. Shota Imanaga before meeting Angel Reese had a 0.89 ERA. Shota Imanaga since meeting Angel Reese has a 7.46 ERA, and it's got the picture of them together over.
That's pretty funny. That's funny.
Oh man. So not great for not great for Shota. And I'm not sure what's happening. Maybe it's just, first season in the big leagues, the ebbs and flows of a season and how that goes sometimes. So maybe that's what's happened. I can't really attribute it to anything else, because a guy who was so dominant to start the year, and now is so not dominant. Like I really don't. And maybe you have the inside numbers here, but I'm not sure what happened really with this guy. And I don't know if he's ever going to be back to, maybe the league caught on, it was new, and God knows, but I hope that the beginning of the season wasn't a fluke and we could still see and he figures it out. But I'm not sure what to tell you right now about Shota Imanaga.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I don't know the numbers that you used in particular, but it was just the one bad start against the Mets. I mean, he went 3 innings and gave up 10 earned, and his ERA went from 1.89 to 2.96 in one start.
Yeah, but he had the one against Milwaukee also that wasn't great, and even the one against Chicago against the White Sox, he only did throw 4 1/3 innings. So it's been, I know that one start put him over the top. And then his 2 prior starts were solid, but then the 2 starts before that were also just kind of rough. So, like I said, it's been almost a month of him just not being the same guy he was at the beginning of the year. And it really dates back to, that time that he met Angel Reese.
That's funny though. I didn't realize that it had been kind of lined up with that. That is pretty funny. But yeah, you're right to say that. I mean, he hasn't been the same pitcher that we've been expecting and relying on. I mean, you look in May, 7 innings, 7 innings, 7 innings, no earned, 2 earned, no earned. Like it's not the same dominance. And maybe it is just him coming back down to earth a little bit, but I still think there's a good pitcher in there. I think he seems to have the mentality. I don't know if you've listened to any of his interviews or anything, but he's kind of a fun guy. Like he's very lighthearted. And so I think, he'll have a bad start, and I think he'll be one of the first ones to brush it off. I'm not saying he's going to go out and be that guy that was, dominating in the first half of the season, or the first part of the season. But I certainly think that there's somewhere in the middle that he'll end up landing, and he's going to be a very reliable pitcher. So we'll see. Again, I mean, that's a good call out, because he hasn't been the same guy, but I certainly think he can be.
I agree. I'm still holding out hope. He just killed my team ERA last week. Let's move forward to the buy low, sell high segment of the podcast. And who are you buying?
I am buying a guy who is only rostered in 45% of leagues, believe it or not. So I don't know if you call it a buy or a pickup, but that is Jose Soriano for the Los Angeles Angels. And so as I was figuring out who to buy low on, I saw his name out there on, in the free agent pool in some of my leagues. And I was kind of surprised because I know so for anyone who doesn't know, he's on the IL with an abdominal infection, which I don't know what that is. No idea. But he's on the 15-day IL, probably going to miss a couple starts through the rotation. But I think this is like a perfect break, if you will, right? I mean, the season, it's a long season, right? And he's a young guy. So this seems to be, it could be a nice mental break for him, a physical break, right? And I think this is the perfect time of year to do it, especially from a fantasy standpoint. You give him 2 to 3 weeks off, and then he's going to come back and hopefully do exactly what he was doing before. And I think there's a breakout potential absolutely inside Jose Soriano. And I found that out as I started to dig into some of his numbers. His fastball velo is averaging over 98 miles per hour. And what he does so well is he gets ground balls. He's got a 60% ground ball rate, which is 98th percentile in Major League Baseball. And a absolutely disgusting knuckle curve, which has a 167 batting average against and a 38% whiff rate, which is just phenomenal. The one thing that I would love to see him do is use his slider a little bit more. So he uses it 5% of the time right now. And if he started to use that more, this is where I think the breakout potential is absolutely going to come. If he ups his slider usage, because here's some of the underlying stuff for his slider: XBA of 118, X slug of 143, and a 46.2% whiff rate. It's just unbelievable. That's one of the best pitches in Major League Baseball if he just starts to use it a little bit more. Again, rostered in only 45% of leagues, but I think by the end of the year, as the stretch goes on, as he gets this little 2-3 week break, whatever it's going to be, he could be a guy at the end of the year that you're like, wow, he really exploded in that second half and led me to the playoffs for fantasy baseball. I'm picking up Jose Soriano wherever I can. Final note, because I know I just went on a long rant here. The top two guys, Savant does where they compare like a velo and movement, right? They compare guys based on velo and movement. Again, not the greatest tool, but it's fun to look at sometimes. He was compared to 2024 Paul Skeens and 2024 George Kirby. If those aren't two great comps, I don't know what else you're looking for. So I think, Jose Soriano absolutely has blow up potential, and I am buying everywhere that I can on him.
What's interesting about that is I think that's what Josh Hart had in the playoffs, like an abdominal infection is what they're calling it. Like that's weird. I'm not sure what that could be. Like, again, now the Knicks just traded for Mikal Bridges last night. I was at Madison Square Garden while it happened. I was pretty excited about it. But the problem is I don't know what the time, like you said, it might just be a 2 to 3 week break, but what could be the timetable? He is rostered in my league. So, I'm assuming that people are stashing him, but I just don't know what the timetable could possibly be on that. I know he's eligible to come back early July, so we'll see in the next couple of days if he does indeed come back. But just a little, it's a little nerve-wracking to be like, oh yeah, I'm sure he'll just be back. Right. An infection. It's not like the type of thing that he can that he could just have a surgery or that is a known timeline. It does seem a little bit more obscure.
Sure. I will say it's probably better than a hamstring or something, right? If it was a hamstring or low back, that's where I would be, or shoulder or forearm. It's none of those things. It sounds like it's
unless it's like an illness, and I mean that's the problem. Like, so you don't want to speculate too much, but that's the other thing. I have a similar one though, who is a guy who's rostered everywhere, and I would buy low on him if somebody's trying to get rid of him, and you can get him for 50 cents on the dollar. I would take him. Because I still think, and I've been talking about him so many times this year, but I just still think he's going to find a way to turn it around. It's Kevin Gausman. He's a better pitcher than this. I'm sorry. Over the last 2 weeks, a 5.29 ERA, on the season, a 4.26 ERA. He's just been better than that his whole career. I don't have any reason to think he's right now. He's the 356 ranked fantasy player on the season. I just don't think he's going to be this bad the rest of the way. And I know you've looked at the numbers in the past and they are a little bit down, but I don't know. I just, to me, Kevin Gausman, I feel like is a better pitcher. You don't just fall off all at once like this. I'd still expect a strong second half from him. And like you said about Soriano, maybe he's the type of guy that you pick him up and you're like, man, I just got this incredible second half out of him. And I traded 50 cents on the dollar for him. You know what I mean? So in a league where we're looking for pitching, where we're looking for hitting, and it's like pitching is everywhere. Maybe you do trade a mediocre hitter. Someone's desperate for a hitter. You trade a mediocre hitter for Kevin Gausman, and all of a sudden you're getting ace production throughout August and then into your fantasy playoffs. So I still hope I have him on my team, so finger crossed that he's going to turn into that guy. And maybe that's why I'm biased here. But I really think Kevin Gausman's going to find a way to just turn it around at some point.
I hope you're right. I mean, I don't have any shares of Kevin Gausman. I mean, just looking at some of the underlying stuff, his expected ERA is even worse than his fastball velo's down at least a mile an hour from last year. Everything underlying looks like no, but then again, underlying stuff doesn't tell the full story. Maybe there's something mental. Maybe, again, this is where veteran leadership comes in. Maybe there's something in there that just needs to be unlocked or tweaked.
Well, there is something mental. He's talked about it. He said that the offense struggling has gotten to him. He said he's felt like he's needed to be more perfect this year because the Blue Jays offense has been so putrid. He said like he's constantly going through it, like where he feels like if he gives up 2 runs, they're going to lose the game. And that has to be weighing on him. And so if you believe in the Blue Jays offense, which I don't know, where do you stand on that? I mean, guys, we talked about all year, Bichette and Vlad and all these guys have been struggling all year. Like, if you believe that they could turn around even a little bit, does that lighten the load on Gausman and he starts pitching better?
Well, and so actually, I almost, for my who's not, I almost put DJ LeMahieu, right? But I thought, no, not enough people really roster him, exactly. Right? But I wanted to lead into the question of, and I've seen this a few times, will the Yankees trade for a first baseman? And could that first baseman be Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Because I've seen that thrown around a few times.
Okay. As a Yankee fan, he's talked about how much he hates the Yankees and he loves being the Yankees. Now, the funny part is he never beats the Yankees. So I think Yankee fans hate him because of how much he's talked about hating the Yankees. But at the end of the day, he's never actually done shit against the Yankees. So like, I think Yankee fans would embrace him. I think he would do well. I think all of a sudden if he showed up and in a new environment and was rejuvenated by the Yankee crowd and all that, he's the type of guy who I feel like needs to be motivated. And I feel like he'd all of a sudden be motivated and he'd become, the potential that we'd hope Vladdy would be. I think a trade to the Yankees would turn Vladdy into the guy probably we were hoping he'd be for the last 4 or 5 years.
I could absolutely see it. And the reason why I brought that up too now is because if Vladdy or Bo Bichette, if Toronto decides, hey, we're going to clean house, does that mean Kevin Gausman's cooked for the year? Like, I mean, talk about not having offensive, help on your side. Now you have no Relvis Martinez.
Well, if they blow it up, anymore. Do they trade him? What is the Gausman? They just signed him to a big contract, right?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that was just something that I was throwing around as I went through.
No, like I said, I like it. Like I think I like that type of trade. Kevin Gausman, yeah, he's on the books through 2026, making not crazy money, but $23 million a year. Again, for a starting pitcher of his caliber, that's not crazy, but it's still a lot of money. I don't think it's the type of thing that you trade. And I mean, unless you really want to haul, like if the Blue Jays think like, hey, we could get a haul for this guy, and there's teams out there that need starting pitching. Hey, let's say the Mets want to make a push. Here's a starting pitcher. I mean, there's so many teams that you could look at and be like, hey, you're trying to make a playoff push. Here's a starting pitcher. Of course, anyone can use a starting pitcher. So yeah, that's interesting. If they blow it up, does he go with them or does his stock just plummet even more?
Yeah, right. It's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. So. All right. Who are you selling at a high price?
I hope you can still sell this guy at a high price because I have a couple shares and I'd like to pawn him off before people hear this. That's Jordan Hicks for the San Francisco Giants.
He was going to be one of my who's not hots.
He, we talked about, and I think the reason why he could be a sell high is because he started off the year so well, and there's a lot of hype coming around him. But if you
still doesn't get through a ton of innings, he throws a ton of pitches, even when he was pitching well.
That's what I got on my notes. You're 2 steps ahead of me, Rami. Slow down here. I really just looked from June on, or I'm sorry, May to June. Really, I kind of ignored April. His ERA from May 25th was 2.33, and now it's 3.24, which not terrible, right? 3.24 ERA on the surface looks fine. But then you mentioned, the pitch count. He absolutely labors through all of his starts. He's got 4 innings, 88 pitches, 5 innings, 87, 3 2/3, 92 pitches, 5 1/3, 101 pitches. Like, these are that's not sustainable, especially from a guy who has never thrown this type of volume before. You can't be doing that as a starter. You have to almost pitch to contact and expect contact. And then on top of it, his strikeout numbers are not what we were hoping for either. His last 3 starts in 13 2/3 innings, 13 strikeouts and 8 walks. You're not going to live with that. Overall, 80 innings pitched, 69 strikeouts, 31 walks, a whip over 1.27, like just 3 quality starts, all of them which were in April. He just has not been the pitcher that we saw out of the gate. And if there is anyone in your league that's still a Jordan Hicks believer, or, thinks, no, he's really got the stuff, I would be all over selling him, because what I think happened is the fatigue has started to get to him, and this is just going to be who he is until he has an IL stint. There's no way he keeps up or goes back to what he was in April. I don't see it.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is the same thing kind of with Luis Gil tonight, right? All those walks have been adding up, and them shortening the leash on him a little bit more has been adding up. And in a game the Yankees really need to win tonight against the Mets, I'm really curious to see how Luis Gil does. Coming off a bad Garrett Cole start against the Mets offense has been scorching, like we mentioned. It's going to be really interesting to see if Luis Gil can deliver for the Yankees tonight. My sell, unless you had thoughts on Luis Gil.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to sell high, and I've been consistent with this. There are guys, and I know this guy's not rostered in a ton of leagues, but there are guys that I've been consistent with that never stay healthy. And there's a guy right now who has a 390 on base over the last 2 weeks. He has 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 8 runs scored, 2 stolen bases. And when it's going good, it's going great with him. That's been his whole career. But when it's going bad, it's because he's hurt, and he's always hurt, and that's Byron Buxton. If you have Byron Buxton, which he's rostered in about 50% of leagues, and one of the better teams in our league, in my fantasy league, it has him right now, I'd try and trade him. If you want to, even if he's on waivers, pick him up and trade him, because the numbers look great recently. That's what he does. This is what he does, is he goes on these hot streaks where he's, oh my God, this is the guy, like we just talked about with Vladdy. This is the hype prospect. What was he, a first round pick? He was a number 1 prospect at one point. This is the guy. And then he gets hurt inevitably. So I told you about Judge. Man, I was wrong. Maybe. By the way, did you see the Judge home run last night?
I did not. No.
Okay.
Is it a mammoth?
No. This is where I'm going with this. So he hit a grand slam to cut the lead to 2. The Yankees are down 6, and then he cut the lead to 2, right? That's the math. In the bottom of the 8th inning. And then Gleyber Torres hit a slow roller and didn't run it out. And so that was the end of the inning. Did you see that? That was ridiculous.
No.
It was literally a dribbler. Could have run it out, jogged, and was beat by a step. And he was like literally half-assing it to first. And if he had just run, he probably would have easily made it. Anyway, I digress. But you see Harrison Bader's a good center fielder. Backing up. He's in front of the track, calling off the defender in right center, and puts his 2 hands up for the glove to catch it, and starts backing up and inching back and inching back and inching back. And even Michael Kay on the call. I didn't hear the Gary call, and Gary's better. So maybe Gary was more on it from right off the bat. But Michael goes high fly ball right center, like la-di-da, and then he's like, Bader's still going back. It's gone. Like he's like, that ball just kept carrying. So my point is, juice balls. I think the juice balls are back. That's where I was going with this. The game, I texted you during the game, the Willie Mays game that they had last week, and wherever the hell that was, I forget what it's called. I can't remember the name of that place, but it was super cool.
Oracle or
no, the game the game that they had between the Giants and the Cardinals at the ballpark on Thursday. They did like that specialty game, kind of like
Rickwood Field.
Yeah, Rickwood. Yeah. I don't know if you watched that, but just like they did the Field of Dreams, I feel like the balls were juiced then. I think the Rickwood game, the balls were 1,000% juiced. Like, what's his name? That guy, Helio
Ramos.
Ramos hit a fucking like pop up and it flew 450 fucking feet. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, so
Ramos is a guy too, just brings a lot of power. So maybe that was, I don't know.
No, I know, but like there were a million home runs in that game.
And,
right. Like when they get extra eyeballs, they like to juice the ball. So maybe, Aaron Judge is coming up. And I mean, 4 home runs off of Garrett Cole in the first 3 innings also. So like, I don't know. I feel like there might have been juice balls or something. The league definitely manipulates, that's for sure. And I know you were the first to bring this up with the league manipulating the baseball. So I was curious if you saw the Aaron Judge home run last night. Anyway, this is all my long-winded way of saying Byron Buxton. If you can get something for him, trade him.
And I almost, I've been thinking about throwing Royce Lewis onto my sell high. I can't do it. But he's another one. If you wanted to sell high on Royce Lewis,
sell high.
Go for it. I maybe I'll look to do it in my dynasty league. I don't know what kind of return I'm going to get, but we'll see. But I think that's a good call because Buxton is always hurt, and those are the guys you want to sell high on.
Yeah, we've been going for a long time, it feels like. So what I'm going to tell you is give us your prospect report, and then we'll get out of here.
All right. I do have a mailbag question that I want to throw real quick too. I know that we'll.
So save the mailbag question. Give me your prospect report, and then give me the mailbag question.
I'll be quick with the prospect report. There's 2 guys that I wanted to point out. The first is David Festa for the Minnesota Twins is being called up to make his MLB debut on Thursday versus Arizona. So Chris Paddock is hitting the IL with right forearm fatigue, and in a corresponding move, David Festa is coming up. For anyone who doesn't know David,
service, Chris Paddock, he did give me some shitty starts.
Well, now you should go grab David Festa because this guy, when I talk about high strikeout rate potential, this guy has a 35% strikeout rate in the minor leagues so far this year. And just for, comparison's sake, 30% is ridiculously high. So, it's high end stuff. So 35% is absolutely insane. He does walk people a little bit too much. He had a 10% walk rate this year in the minors. ERA of 3.77, but an xFIP of 3.13. So there's certainly potential for him to kind of stick in the rotation, especially if he's able to get enough whiffs. He's definitely going to make at least 2 starts, right? As long as Chris Paddock's out and he doesn't get absolutely toasted in his first start, he's going to make a couple rounds through the rotation. And if he sticks, he absolutely is going to be fantasy relevant and valuable. So I think he's an add in pretty much every league size and type. David Festa, again, should be added everywhere. If he, I'm not saying start him right away. I'm probably going to start him against Arizona with, expectations that it could go wrong. But if you need strikeouts, and a lot of leagues I do, David Festa is absolutely the guy to be going after right now. My next guy, my final guy here, Ryan Bliss, middle infielder for the Seattle Mariners, has been called up, and he was supposed to, as far as I understand, he was supposed to get sent down when Jorge Polanco returned, but Jorge Polanco returned and Ryan Bliss is still on the major league roster. They have JP Crawford and Jorge Polanco up the middle infield there, but we did see Ryan Bliss take some fly balls, so he could be seeing time in the outfield. And the reason why you want to go pick up Ryan Bliss, I absolutely am going to go pick him up if I can anywhere. He had 55 steals last year and then 28 in 50 games this year. So absolute game-changing speed. And this isn't like an Asturias Ruiz type situation. He actually hits the ball very, very hard. Hard hit percent, 50% so far in his short major league stint. Average exit velocity right around 90 miles an hour. So again, this is not Asturias Ruiz. He's a small guy, but he makes some powerful contact. He plays second base, plays shortstop, could get into the outfield at some point, and potential huge fantasy impact. This is a perfect quote unquote minor league stash, even though he's on the major league roster. If Jorge Polanco goes down, I mean, this guy's going to see regular playing time, and Jorge Polanco's got plenty of injury history. Even if he doesn't, Ryan Bliss could certainly play his way into the roster. So he is an add in almost every league that I can, that I have an extra spot or something that I don't know what to do with. Ryan Bliss is a guy I'd love to hold on to.
I will tell you this as well. I don't know what that pop-up was. But this is super random. But Reed Garrett for the next at least 9 games while what's his name is serving a suspension. Edwin Diaz.
Yes, yeah.
I would pick him up. I think he's going to be the primary option for closer. So if you want saves for this week and next week, Reed Garrett's a good option. And then, by the way, if you're in a saves holds league, he's going to get you holds. So not a bad pickup in a save holds league, but I picked him up in my league that saves only because I think he can get a couple of saves. Last night, so I don't know how that works. He comes in with the bases loaded up 6. So, and then he gives up the grand slam to Judge, but then gets the last out of the 8th and then gets all 3 outs in the 9th. So he was up 6, but the bases were like, that's not a save. They end up winning by 2.
I don't know the nuance behind it. That's a good question.
It was weird. So doesn't it work that if you come in with the tying run on deck, maybe? Or is it the tying run in the hole?
That's a good question.
Because 3 runs means the tying run in the hole.
I don't know.
So I think it's the tying run in the hole, which would mean that he came in a save situation.
We'll have to dive into that.
And he gives up the grand slam to Judge, and then he gets 4 outs.
Because I would think that, because the runs aren't charged to him, I would think he
only gets 1 of the runs.
Right, exactly. I'm saying, I guess the rest of them.
But he didn't get a save. I'm super confused by that stat. That stat makes no sense.
According to all of it says pitcher must finish the game for the winning team and not be the winning pitcher, which he was. The pitcher must enter the game with a lead of no more than 3 runs. Oh, maybe that's why, because he entered the game with a bigger lead than 3 runs. That could be it.
What does that mean? That happens all the time. Guys come in with a 5-run lead, but the bases are loaded.
Do you have any? I don't know if you have specific examples. That's the only thing I could think of.
That happens all the time. No, that happens all the time. That if the runner is on base, then it becomes a save situation.
Possibly. I don't know. We'll have to look into it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, what's your mailbag question?
Sure. So my mailbag question has some effect to fantasy, but it's also just a good baseball conversation. So I'm curious if it will have fantasy impact or not. My mailbag question is the ball and strike challenge system. So you see a lot of umpires missing some pretty blatantly obvious calls. Is this something that you anticipate the MLB implementing soon, whether it's the challenge system or whatever? When you talk about robo-umps, I think the challenge system is more likely. What are your thoughts on this? Where do you stand? How does this affect fantasy at all? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I forget who I was with. I don't spend a lot of time with a lot of people, so I'm trying to remember other than work. But it wasn't work. I think it was like over the weekend I was with people and we were talking about this. And I can't remember, but we were talking about how the NFL does it so smart where they don't even they don't introduce things. They don't let there be public discourse about it. It's just like, hey, this year we're allowing you to challenge pass interference. It's here now. Welcome. You know what I mean? And then the next year it's like, well, that sucked. It's gone. You know what I mean? Oh, this year, new kickoff rule. It's going to be the way it is in the XFL. MLB shoots themselves in the foot constantly. And I know, shocking that would be my take, where they test it out in the minors and here's how it looks. And they deliberate over it and they make it a public discourse for 5 years before they ever do anything about it. And it makes it quite literally it just makes it such a hot button topic before it even ever happens. Like if tomorrow Major League Baseball was like, hey, you could challenge it and all you have to do is tap your helmet and it shows it on the big screen and it's a 3-second process, who would dislike it? Everyone would love it. Oh, I remember what it was. Yeah, I was on my way to the funeral on Sunday. I was talking to 2 people about it in the car. Oh man, that I was with people on Sunday. A lot of people. Yes. All right. But yeah, it was all.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something I was thinking about. I mean, is it, I think the way that you might take advantage of this in fantasy, obviously this would happen at the end of the year. you look at some of the guys who were the most unlucky due to umpire, calls and stuff like that. And again, I don't know where the stats maybe would lie on that. If it does lie somewhere,
I don't think. Yeah, but I think like that's the thing. Umpires are consistently bad across the league, so it's nothing to do with. I don't think there's one guy. I mean, I'm sure there is one guy, but
right.
it's like it evens out. You know what I mean? Which is it's the same for everyone. So while it sucks, like it's part of the game. Like people miss calls in every sport. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think we could live without it. Honestly, I think the box, has hurt umpires. Yeah. I think if we didn't have the box, like just take away the box, by the way, and no one would be complaining about umpires anymore.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a good point too. The only reason I brought up, the unlucky thing is somebody's stats are more deflated than others on average because of this. And so maybe there's a buying opportunity for whoever that is. Just something I was thinking about, but yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing
a big difference is like a guy, and we talked about this with someone. Maybe it was your guy from Atlanta who came up.
Okay, Schwellenbach or
the other starter.
Hurston Waldrop. Yeah.
Waldrop, who like gets a borderline 50-50 call to not go his way. Instead, it's a ball. Otherwise, it would have been strike 3 to get out of the inning. Then gives up a 3-run homer and then gives up 2 more hits and can't get out of it. You know what I mean? Like it would be something. It would have to be something like that where a ball, a strike, a 3-2 pitch gets called a ball instead of a strike, and then the pitcher implodes the rest of the way. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it would be because like for a hitter, it wouldn't be consistent enough that a guy is constantly getting shafted by umpires. Like I don't know.
Fair. That's a good point. I mean, I'm just you think about referees and stuff, right? Or I'm thinking basketball terms. Guys have earned their right to drive into the lane or something and get a foul call or whatever the case is. And I remember seeing Wyatt Langford get rung up on 3 straight balls, strike, and they were all out of the strike zone. So I don't know, just something that I got a question from it, and I was curious what your thoughts were, and yeah, now I know.
All right. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for us. I agree with you there that I think it would work. I think, if you just do the quick tap on the helmet and they show, you can't have it for every pitch, though. That's the type of thing where it's like,
right.
How do you limit it? How do you police it? And this is the problem. Do you trust Major League Baseball to implement it and police it in the proper way? I don't. Do you?
I think the policing is is it 1 per at bat per player or something? And if you're right, you get to keep doing it. But if you're wrong, you're done. Almost like a challenge. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I trust. I think my problem has been with the umpires. I mean, they have such quick hooks this year. I don't know if you've thought.
I know they've been emotional as hell.
Yeah, they're very quick to throw out anyone who questions them. So I don't know. Maybe it would be something similar, or could even cause more of a rift. I'd like to see that. That'd be fun. Like, hey, you suck at your job. I'm better than you at your job. I can do this all day. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, Juan Soto, I'd give him 9 of them because if Juan Soto doesn't swing at a pitch,
it's a ball.
More often than not, it's a ball. I know I've said this all year, but I never watched him every day. Last year I did too, because last year I watched a ton of the Padres. I like the Padre hat you're wearing now, and I guess I've watched a lot of Nationals baseball in the past, but last year and this year, the last 2 years, I've watched Juan Soto more than ever in my life. And I swear to you, unless he's just taking all the way, because some people just take a pitch, you know what I mean? If he takes a close pitch, 97% of the time, it's a ball. No. And it's just, I've never seen anything like it. Like if he thinks it's a ball, it's a ball. And if you call it a strike, you're wrong. It's just crazy. So he would tap his helmet every time and he'd get it every single time.
Wouldn't that make him?
But but at that point, why have that? Just go to robo-umps. Like what's the big leap? You know what I mean?
Maybe it's a slow transition. It's a good question.
Major League Baseball, the slow transition.
Because some people still love the human aspect of it. Others are, up the umpires' asses on every single call.
Well, like football this year, it's like, hey, guess what? No more chains. We're putting a thing in the ball. It's going to be
Wait, is that for real? I didn't see that. That's
100%.
No more chains.
It's the first down. We'll know it's a first down.
Interesting. Oh,
hockey's doing this soon. They soft launched it. They didn't tell anyone. Hockey did it the right way with the puck lighting up. But they used the pucks in some of the playoff games this year, and they had like videos like, "Why is the puck lighting up?" Because it crossed the net line. So it's going to happen. Why should we have 15 minutes of an old ass man running out with chain? Like that's so antiquated. Just put a chip in the football.
Or just put a chip in the baseball. Call it a day.
Put a chip in the baseball. Yeah, I would do the same thing. All right. We've gone.
Yeah, we've been going way over. Sorry about that, but just something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah. All right. If you want to send mailbag questions, you should, and you should reach out to us. Follow us. There's a ton of content on our YouTube page, on our Instagram, on not TikTok, my TikTok. If you want to look at my TikTok, Rami Lavi, but on Twitter or X, all under Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. If you look up Just Baseball, also there's a ton of content there, and everyone who's working on the social media stuff is doing a great job. So definitely follow us there, and then you could also ask us more mailbag questions there, and we'll follow up. So until next time, everybody, like, subscribe, share the podcast, and we'll see you all.